Hello and welcome everybody to another edition of Drumroll, please. Zach and EJ talk sports. I'm EJ and this is Zach, and today we're going to be getting into a little NFL, some pretenders, contenders, front runners for awards. We're going to give you a little Major League Baseball, talking about the front runners for MVP and other league awards, and we're going to finish up with some early NBA talk. So let's kick it off today with our NFL and pretenders and contenders. Now, if you watched the game last night, we had two teams that are considered to be front runners in the NFL, NFC, the Packers and the Cardinals, and it was a great game. Went down literally to the last play, and I know you have some strong feelings about the Cardinals.
Yeah, I feel like even though they lost that game, they're definitely big contenders to win the whole league, win the Super Bowl, because I feel like Kyler Murray, he's a smart player. He's an amazing talent because he can run the ball as good as any quarterback, besides maybe Lamar Jackson. He can throw the ball very well. He makes the smart play. Their running backs are underrated. They obviously have DeAndre Hopkins and a solid core of receivers. Zach Ertz is very good. Their defense isn't great, but it's solid. Losing J.J. Watt really hurts them because you can notice in the game last night they really couldn't stop the Packers' run game. But I feel like they definitely have the players and the coaching to win it all.
So a couple notes on the Cardinals from my point of view is one, since we did the last podcast where we had the NFC West as one of the toughest conferences with possibly four teams actually all being viable playoff contenders, we're now seeing that two of them are beginning to fade with the Seahawks and the Niners. My problem with the Cardinals, and what you have to call the Cardinals out for, I feel, is last night was a huge game for them. It was prime time, national television. The Packers came in limping into that game, missing their defensive coach, a ton of players, a lot of their offensive.
Top three receivers.
Exactly, top three receivers, and you have to win that game. Now, to the Cardinals, I don't know if you want to say credit in this situation, but I feel that the Cardinals actually lost that game. Really, then the Packers won it. Going down and watching that last drive, it was very impressive how the Cardinals moved the ball and got themselves down to be in a position to win that game, definitely tie the game outside of just a completely botched field goal, and then to lose it in that fashion on that stage with a statement, trying to make a statement as being, a solidified NFC contender. I feel that was a big black eye for the Cardinals.
I feel like last night they didn't look good. Their defense didn't look great. I mean, they didn't give up a ton of points, but like they really just couldn't stop the Packers. They had these long, like never-ending drives against them. Then offensively, they could barely move the ball. The Packers defense looked good, and it's not like the Packers defense is one of the best in the league. It's a very good defense, but you got to be able to move the ball, especially if you're a team who was 6-0 thinking that they are legit contenders.
Now,
or are they 7-0?
Yeah, I mean,
they were 7-0, I think.
I feel like with the Cardinals, they do have at least a playoff worthy defense. I mean, last night it was either late third quarter or early fourth quarter. They shut the Packers down on the goal line. 4 downs. They stopped them on 4th and goal. Very impressive, and they have a great pass rush. And if you look at Aaron Rodgers' numbers, not really Aaron Rodgers like, not very impressive. Now, obviously, if we were coming at this from the Packers side, we can look at how depleted they were and some of the receivers that Rodgers was playing with. He had a lot of drops. But I felt the Cardinals' defense did show enough that they're playoff worthy. I feel like they just have to show up in a big spot on the big stage.
Yeah, they kind of just have to put it all together because besides the drive that you mentioned, there was the botched kickoff, or it was a punt. The botched kick where they had the ball at the 3-yard line, 1st and goal, the Packers, and the Cardinals held them to a field goal, which was very good. I just feel like without J.J. Watt, other people are really going to need to step up and just for the defense to give Kyler Murray his opportunities because while they had those stops, there was also like 14-play, 75-yard drives.
So with that, and since we're talking about pretenders and contenders, where do you put their counterpart from last night, the Packers?
I feel like when healthy, they are contenders. I just don't think they'll win it all. I think they're probably the third best team in the NFC besides the Cardinals and one other team, which I might mention later. But I feel like when at their best, Aaron Rodgers, Devontae Adams, I feel like, as they always do, I don't think they'll be able to make it the whole way. Because, especially, injuries happen, as you saw this week. They're going to have some tough playoff matchups, which I don't know if they're better than some other teams like the Cardinals, the Bucks, the Rams.
Right. Well, I mean, they're sitting at 7-1 on top of their, conference, and you have the next closest to the Vikings at 3-3, Bears behind them at 3-4, and then the Lions at 0-7. So they should, be able to feast on their own, divisional opponents. But as the Bucks showed last year, they can go into Lambeau in a big spot and beat them. I don't know if we can expect the same from either the Cardinals or the Rams. So for the Packers, I think that home field advantage, is going to be key. Now the Cowboys are another intriguing team. Do you have any thoughts on the Cowboys?
I actually considered saying they were a contender. I don't think they're a pretender. I don't think they're a contender. They'll be in the playoffs. They'll win their division. But their division's so weak. I just think, as good as they're playing, they can't keep that up for a full season. Just because we've seen, pretty much this core of players before. And they haven't won it all. When Zeke was in his prime, Zeke's playing great. When Zeke was, the rushing leader of the NFL, they still couldn't, really make some noise in the playoffs. I think when it comes down to it, they're still not as good as the Packers, the Cardinals, the Rams, the Bucks. Just those teams in the way they can shut you down and then just move the ball offensively. It really...
The Cowboys, I do think that they're going to be poised to make some noise, or at least have a puncher's chance, because of all the big play capabilities they have at all the major positions. I mean, you have guys that are capable of, making huge plays to turn games around. When you're looking at Diggs in the secondary, Micah Parsons, and then obviously on the offensive side of the ball with Zeke, with Lamb and Cooper and Dak, who are playing great. You have a lot of guys that, can step up and impact a game. As you see in the playoffs, it always really does come down to the trenches, the offensive and defensive lines, and how well they play. So, the Cowboys, I still think, have some work to do in that area as far as demonstrating that they can be dominant, with their pass rush, and also with, protecting Zach and opening up holes for Zeke. I know it was week 1, but they, Cowboys all but abandoned the run against the Bucks and said, we're just not even going to try. So I don't think that you can have that kind of mindset going into playoff football. So they'll have to be able to show that they can dominate a game or take over a game, on the offensive and defensive side of the ball with their lines.
And the big plays are very important in the playoffs. What it comes down to is when there's a big play, totally switches the momentum. But it's not always a recipe towards winning. Like the Cowboys were in that overtime game against the Patriots, which they won that game on a big play. But the Patriots aren't a good enough team to take a contender, potentially, to overtime. And Trevon Diggs, he's an amazing player. He has the most interceptions in the league, but he also gives up a lot of yards. So...
yeah, he's definitely had, been torched for a few big plays. How about if we look at the AFC? Who are our contenders and pretenders in the AFC?
I feel like the Bills are definitely a contender, just because their defense is playing amazing. Josh Allen, after a shaky start to the season, looks like Josh Allen. After people were saying he might be back to the player he was, the inconsistent, almost like the only big player, where he just throws a lot of picks, throws a lot of touchdowns. He's came out, he's balled out. Their team overall has just been playing good football. I feel like they could win it. This might be their year, especially because the Chiefs aren't playing good.
But are the Bills just basically the Packers of the AFC, where we're going to constantly see them in the championship game and then losing in a big spot? I mean, before they went on bye last week, we saw them lose in a big spot. I agree. On paper, the Bills are a scary team, but I have to see them do it in a big spot. I know they got past the Chiefs, which was a huge thing, but now, since it seems everybody's getting past the Chiefs, we have to question the validity of the Chiefs. I need to see the Bills. I can't judge the Bills in the regular season.
Yeah.
I'm gonna need to see them do it in the playoffs. The team that I am slowly becoming a believer on are the Bengals. And I, as a Dolphins fan, watching Jamar Chase go to the Bengals instead of the Dolphins, and all the how cute we got with the draft this year. Chase is an absolute beast, and I think they're kind of proving everyone wrong. Where everyone said they should have taken an offensive lineman, they had to go offensive lineman in that spot, but now they have an offense that just appears to not be able to be stopped. And Joe Burrow is not playing really like a rookie season, because I mean he lost his rookie season to a torn ACL, and he's playing like a seasoned veteran. So the Bengals are a scary team. Not positive about their defense and how their defense is going to hold up, but what are your thoughts on the Bengals?
I feel like I was one of the people who were saying, why would you take Jamar Chase? Take the offensive lineman. But, I mean, yeah. I just can't really pronounce his name great. I didn't want to say it. I feel like Jamar Chase obviously has proved everyone wrong. Joe Burrow is playing, I'm not saying he's the MVP so far, but an MVP-like season. I just feel like I don't think their defense, and even still comes down to the offensive line, is good enough when you're playing teams like the Bucs, like the Rams, who have shut down players at every position on defense, who will lock you up, rush the quarterback, play great coverage in the secondary. I don't know if the Joe Burrow bombing it up to Jamar Chase will really be as effective. And when the offense is being not stopped, because you can't really stop that offense because they have so many playmakers, but being more contained, I feel like a team like the Bucs, even though they're in the NFC, a team like the Bills will get the scores that they need, especially if they're stopping that defense, because the defense isn't good. It's going to really, in any playoff games, if the Bengals are there, it's going to be a shootout if they want to win. They need to score a lot of points, and I just think some days they're not going to be able to do that because everyone has off days.
Well, I mean, the AFC to me does appear to be the more intriguing conference right now, because everybody kind of is hovering around the same spot. The NFC, we have, really you go to the Bucs, Packers, Cardinals, Cowboys,
Right.
And then you start dropping off. Mm-hmm. In the AFC, I mean, we haven't even touched on, if we were looking at the Bengals, we haven't touched on the Ravens, the Browns, and the Steelers in that conference. And actually, the Ravens are sitting at 5-2, same record as the Bengals, but the Bengals have the tiebreaker. And Browns are at 4-3. And Mayfield's going to try and play this week, and the Steelers right behind him at 3-3. Some tough teams: Colts, who I'm not a fan of, sitting at 3-4. Titans at 5-2. This is the team I want your take on. AFC West, we have the Raiders at 5-2. Are the Raiders a pretender or a contender?
They're definitely a pretender. I have two teams down here as pretenders. That's the Bengals and the Raiders. The Raiders are just such an interesting team. They have a lot of players on offense and defense overperforming than what they would usually do. Their defense has been good, which doesn't make sense, really. And then Derek Carr has been playing very good. Derek Carr is just a solid QB. He's not special. He's not like a Kyler Murray. When you go out into the playoffs, you don't want to be like, I trust Derek Carr to make all these plays throughout a game to win us this playoff game. No, I feel like their offense is just, Josh Jacobs is playing phenomenal, but it's so centered around Darren Waller that I feel like that'll self-destruct almost.
So, hot take. Right now, today, what two teams are playing in the AFC Championship game?
The Bills.
Okay.
And then for the second spot, I'm between the Ravens and the Chiefs. I'm going to say the Ravens just because of the Chiefs they're playing right now. So the Bills-Ravens. The Ravens, Lamar Jackson's playing like he did when he won the MVP. Hollywood Brown's having a very good season, which is very, very surprising. But he's having a great season. Mark Andrews is playing good. The defense is playing good. They're just playing tremendous overall football. The Bills, I've already talked about the Bills. But then on the Chiefs, I think the Chiefs are going to definitely turn it around. They'll make the playoffs. They'll probably win their division. Because eventually, Patrick Mahomes hasn't been solved. Patrick Mahomes is having a bad season. He's thrown a bunch of interceptions, but not all of them have been his fault. His receivers, including Tyreek Hill, just played bad. It's like they're throwing to them and they're tipping it up right to the defense. Like, not even putting in all the effort. Travis Kelce hasn't been amazing. He's been good. He hasn't looked like Travis Kelce. And they're not getting stops either. Overall, they look like a terrible football team. But eventually, I think they're going to shake off the Super Bowl loss, because that's probably still hanging on them a bit because of just the defense of the Bucs, how it absolutely destroyed their offense during the Super Bowl. I think eventually they're going to turn around. Patrick Mahomes is going to start playing like himself, and I think they'll make the playoffs, come close to the AFC Championship, but lose.
I have a little bit of a different take on the Chiefs. I mean, I feel that you hear so many times everybody says the NFL is a copycat league, and the book on the Chiefs is out right now. You know, where teams are now playing two deep safeties, and they're basically saying nothing gets past us, and they're making the Chiefs drive. They're instead of letting the Chiefs hit home runs, and the Chiefs' offense is a home run hitting offense. And now, when you're making the Chiefs drive, you could see that they get frustrated. They don't like to drive the football. They like to, get their chunk plays. And with that has now led to mistakes, and I think it's also exposed the Chiefs' defense, which is just atrocious. Probably one of the worst defenses in the league. But at this point in time, I think the Chiefs have earned, and Patrick Mahomes has earned the right until I physically see them knocked out. I'm not betting against them when the chips are on the line. I mean, the only person that I may bet against him is when it comes to Tom Brady, because he's a guy you just can't see. He doesn't age, and you can't bet against him. It's the two things with Tom Brady. But until I see the Chiefs get knocked out, Chiefs are going to be my pick to make it to at least the AFC Championship game, if not the Super Bowl. Now, that doesn't take anything away from the Chargers, who I think are a fantastic football team, but we have to see how they rebound from that loss to the Ravens.
Yeah.
And they're coming out of a bye. So a lot of these teams, this particular week coming up, I think are going to be, very telling. So we should look at and get into this week's games, starting with your buddies, the Bengals, playing the Jets. Now, we're not really looking at point spreads, but the Bengals are giving 10.5. But how do you feel about the Bengals and the Jets this week?
I feel like, especially because Zach Wilson is out, their backup QB, Mike White, he actually, from what I saw, played okay last week. They're just not going to beat the Bengals. As much as I was saying it's the Bengals, and their defense is their biggest flaw, and if their offense get contained, the Jets just came off a week where they gave up 54, I think, points against the Patriots. And the Patriots' offense is not even comparable to the Bengals. And defensively, maybe the Jets will score, but with a backup QB, the Bengals' defense isn't that bad.
If there's a definition for the typical trap game, this would be that game for the Bengals. They're going to the Meadowlands. The Jets just came off an embarrassing loss. Bengals are riding high. I mean, all the points are there for the trap game upset in the making. Jets traded for Joe Flacco, a fifth rounder.
Is he gonna start?
I don't think so, but I'm still shaking my head at that. I mean, at this point in time, if I was the Jets, I would think that your most prized possession are your draft picks. So giving up a fifth rounder for Joe Flacco has me scratching my head, unless they just feel that they have absolutely no veteran leadership on the offensive side of that ball, and they need somebody in the locker room and in the meeting rooms to help teach some of the younger guys how to win. But at this point in time, the Jets are just that bad that I think that even if the Bengals play 3 sloppy quarters, they still wouldn't fall far enough out to be able to to win it in the fourth. So I'm going with the Bengals too. We have the Colts traveling to the Titans. This is actually a pretty intriguing game. Colts Titans. What are you thinking?
This is actually a good one. Great running back matchup. The Colts defense, even though it's a good defense, I just don't see them stopping Derrick Henry. I think Derrick Henry, especially because A.J. Brown's coming off, hopefully getting his not his skill back, but like becoming the player that he was in his first 2 years, because he had an amazing game last week. I just feel like Derrick Henry is gonna space out the defense, and then A.J. Brown will get some big plays. I think it'll be a Tennessee win.
One thing that kind of flies under the radar with the Colts is that they've won their last 3 games by like combined 50 points. And they also actually blew a huge lead to Baltimore, which was their one defeat. Since these two teams last met. So the Colts are kind of surprisingly putting up a lot of points. Does that, factor in? Does that catch the Titans off guard? I feel like the Titans right now have, victories over the Bills and the Chiefs. Very impressive. And I think that, they're going to keep their foot down. I don't think that they're going to come into this game, letting off that gas pedal. Derrick Henry right now literally almost has double the rush yards that Jonathan Taylor, who's second in the league behind Henry. So Henry is just having an insane year already with 10 touchdowns, almost 900 rushing yards. I think that he's going to be too much, and that being that this game is also in Tennessee, I'm going with the Titans as well. We have the Rams traveling to Houston, which everybody thinks that this is just a layup for the Rams. They're actually giving over 2 touchdowns to Houston. Do I need to ask you who you're picking in this game?
I'm gonna pick the Rams. The Houston isn't as bad as it would seem, but they're not a good football team. The Rams will win by a pretty good amount. The game might not be a total blowout because the Rams aren't gonna need to keep their foot on the gas pedal the whole game.
I feel like it would have probably been a closer game if Tyrod Taylor played, but it looks like he's not ready to return yet, and they're going to be starting Davis Mills. So I think a lot of where he's at right now with his development will be exposed, and I think that the Rams just have too much firepower on both sides of the ball. I don't even see this game being close. We have the Browns traveling to Pittsburgh. Mayfield coming back to play with a fracture in his shoulder and also the torn labrum. How effective he will be, not sure. Nick Chubb, I believe, is going to be expected to play. As right now, he's expected to play. So how you feeling about the Browns and Steelers?
I like the Browns as a team much better because Mayfield's coming back, Chubb's coming back, and because it's not like a definitive, yes, they're healthy, they're coming back. I don't think they're at 100%. I wouldn't risk bringing those 2 players back so early for this game. And even with them playing, I feel like Pittsburgh's going to have a good game. I think the Steelers are going to win.
Hot take. This is a must win for both of these teams because the Browns are sitting at 4-3, Steelers are 3-3. And I feel that the Browns, with their victory last year over the Steelers in the playoffs, have to follow up this season with cementing that they are a team on the rise, not only in that division, but in the AFC and really the NFL. So this is really kind of a prove-it game for the Browns. I'm going to pick the Browns because I feel that Kevin Stefanski is one of the best coaches in the NFL, and I think he's done a tremendous job. So I'm going Browns over the Steelers in a close one. I mean, the line is close. The Browns are actually given 3.5. But I think it's going to go down to who has the ball last. We have the Eagles heading to the winless Lions.
I mean, the Lions are they're not good. It's bad. Their offense isn't great. DeAndre Swift's very good, but their offense isn't great. Their defense is terrible. Overall, I mean, I'm not a huge Eagles guy. I don't think they're that good of a team, but they won't be the first team to lose to the Lions.
The Lions play hard, and they really fight hard for their new coach. I'm going to pick the Lions in this game because I do feel that the Eagles are a bit of a mess, and we don't really know what we're getting, especially if Sanders isn't playing. Now, the only issue with the Lions is I feel that I could probably start for receiver for Detroit. I mean, right now, their number 1 receiver, Khalif Raymond, was basically at the bottom of the Tennessee depth chart. So when you have that and you have a quarterback with Jared Goff who, hasn't really done much when he's not surrounded by a ton of talent, I think does serve as a massive disadvantage for the Lions. But in their building, trying to get that first win against an Eagles team who is a little banged up and is very kind of Jekyll and Hyde-ish, I can see the Lions pulling us out. And we need a hot take. So I'm going Lions. Lions by a field goal in this one. Niners and Bears, which I think at the beginning of the year, this looked like a great matchup. on paper, and one that would be really fun to watch. But right now, I'm not really feeling it. It's not as sexy right now as it was, I think early on when we were looking at the schedule release, a few weeks ago. So where are you at, the Niners and Bears?
I feel like both teams are somewhat boring. Not the most interesting team, but I feel like Justin Fields, he's been playing better. I feel like against the Niners, even though their defense is good, I think he's gonna have a very good game. Uh, just the Bears team, I feel like is just a bit better. I think they'll win, but in a very close one.
The Bears are a very interesting team in the fact that there's certain times that they don't even look like they have a professional offense in the NFL. I mean, they look like they can barely move the ball, and it's not an NFL caliber offense. But yet, at the same point in time, they have wins over the Raiders and the Bengals. So you're not really positive what you're going to get with the Bears. I feel the Niners are a bit more consistent, and I feel that their defense can do some things to stifle the Bears' offense, and I think that the offense of the Niners has enough playmakers to get past the Bears in this game, even though it's in Chicago. So I'm taking the Niners. Falcons and Panthers. Remember back when the Panthers used to be good? So now, I don't know. They've officially just bowed out of the Deshaun Watson trade talks. So it looks like they're going to ride Darnold for the rest of the year. But you have Darnold matching up against Ryan. Falcons, Panthers. Who do you like?
I'm gonna take the Falcons. I just feel like the Panthers, they have the opposite of momentum right now. They're just not looking good. And the Falcons have some momentum. Kyle Pitts is playing amazing, looking like the guy who was considered, before he even played a game, one of the best tight ends in football. Matt Ryan's playing good. Their defense is playing not great, but they're playing okay. I feel like the Falcons win this one.
It's an interesting game because neither defense right now is really at their best, and both defenses right now seem to have a hard time getting to the quarterback. So it might be a fun game to watch in regards to seeing some points being put up on the board. But this game, I think, is as close to just a straight up pick it or coin toss as you can have in this particular week. I am going to take the Falcons because I feel that the Falcons, although it's been the Jets and the Dolphins they've beaten up on, that they are trending in the right direction right now. And as you mentioned, the Panthers are moving in the opposite direction. Although I would really like to see the Panthers win this game because I think it makes that division more exciting when the Panthers are playing well. And I do think that the Panthers overall have a better team than the Falcons. But I just think right now with the injuries to the Panthers and the momentum the Falcons have, that the Falcons are going to probably pull this one out. So I'm going Falcons too. And this one just makes me wince looking at it. Being a Dolphins fan, we have the Bills traveling to Miami. Buffalo is going, I believe they are trying to tie their all-time record against the Dolphins of 6 or 7 straight wins, which I think was the last time they did that was in 86 and 87 against the Marino-led Dolphins. This is, a tough game for Tua because will it be one of his last games as a Dolphin? He's yet to prove himself, and this is definitely a team that he has not had a great track record against. Earlier in the year, the Bills put up 50 on him and knocked Tua out of the game. So Bills, Dolphins, I mean, I feel like I know which way you're going. I feel which way the person with eyes and ears and follows any kind of football is going. But where are you at with this one?
I'm going to go with the Bills. I just feel like, really, Tua, with the speculation to Deshaun Watson, and even when there wasn't that speculation, he's a okay quarterback. He's not the quarterback who's going to go in, play one of the best teams in football, and beat them, especially because the Bills' offense isn't exactly going to be getting stopped by the Dolphins' defense either. I don't think he and your offensive core overall have the firepower to even make it a close game against the Bills.
Well, I'm gonna divert for a second. I'm in a Miami Dolphins group chat with a bunch of hardcore Dolphins fans, and I had this discussion with them over and over and over. Tua is one of the most highly debated quarterbacks prospects right now in the league, And my thought on Tua is this: he's not a bad quarterback. He's not a bust. Can't call him a bust, you know. But Tua is a player that is going to need to be surrounded by talent and is going to need to be part of a system that works for him. And I feel that there are quarterbacks in this league who have won that way. I would put Tua in the same category. I would put a Baker Mayfield, Kirk Cousins. You're not going to take those guys and ask them to win the game. I mean, how much
with the Dolphins core,
or the Browns don't ask Mayfield to go win the game for. I mean, how much of a drop off was there when Mayfield didn't even play last week? Not a lot. When we talk about a franchise quarterback, those are guys that you know them when you see them, and you see a guy like Herbert play, Mahomes play, Burrow. These are guys that can put a franchise on their back and win games. Daniel Jones is another guy that I put in the category of Tua. Not a bad quarterback, not a bust, but needs the right things. Needs all the pieces around him to be successful. And Miami is not going to do that. When Tua is really only, excels at throwing the short intermediate routes and you have absolutely no running game, and you go out and your wide receivers are speed burners, you're not really putting this quarterback in a position, with the pieces around him to be successful. He's not a Josh Allen. Josh Allen's another franchise guy. And before we move on, I'd actually like your take on this. In your opinion, how do you define a franchise quarterback? What do you look for in a franchise quarterback for you?
It has to be someone like almost what Aaron Rodgers showed you last night, and like what you were saying. Someone who doesn't need like weapons and in general weapons that perfectly fit them in the system to win. Like Aaron Rodgers didn't have his top 3 receivers. He went out and won the game against a very good team. Kyler Murray is not generational, but he's a franchise quarterback just because of his skill, the way they can do things that not any other people really can do besides the other people who are considered the best quarterbacks in the league.
Right.
Like Baker Mayfield, Daniel Jones, great players. Like, I can name like 15 QBs off the top of my head who are just as good as them and can do the same things as them.
I feel like the poster boy for that bracket of quarterbacks is Eli Manning. Like, Eli Manning to me, would not have been a franchise quarterback on just any team. Like, you couldn't just take Eli Manning and put him on the Browns and have him just completely turn that franchise around. I think he would make them competitive. He would add some stability to the quarterback position. But, Eli Manning is the gold standard for that second tier of quarterback. Not diminishing his career. Eli Manning, in my opinion, is absolutely a Hall of Famer. But there's certain guys in the NFL that you can, that play the quarterback position, that you can put them out there. And just them being under center, like a great point guard does for an NBA team, just instantly legitimizes that franchise and makes them competitive and helps them put points on the board. Now we move on from my team to your team. We have the Pats traveling all the way out to LA to take on the Chargers. What are we thinking about the Pats and Chargers?
The Patriots, they come off not a great game because we were playing the Jets, but a good game for us. We dropped a lot of points, which we don't really do often. But it was against the Jets. The Chargers are coming, and the Chargers are just a legit team. They have Herbert. They have Eckler. They have the receivers. Their defense is okay. I feel like the Chargers win this one. It might be closer than it would be looking at it on paper because of Bill Belichick and the way he plays games to make them close. But I think the Chargers win.
It's an interesting game. I mean, if you're the Patriots, you're not super psyched because you're coming out to LA to play the Chargers off the Chargers bye week, when the week before that they had a very rough loss to the Ravens. So they've had a couple weeks to kind of stew on that loss, and are now, hopefully, if they are a legitimate team, are ready to come out and right the ship. I feel this game and how competitive it is really boils down to just one player, and that's Damian Harris. If Damian Harris can have a good game, can move the chains for the Pats, I think the Patriots keep it close. And if the Patriots keep it close, that gives them a puncher's chance to win the game. I think outright, though, the Chargers are the better team. And I think that given this, given the loss of the Ravens and the bye and the fact that they're playing this game at home, I'm taking the Chargers too. Okay, that brings us to the Seahawks and the Jaguars. We got a hot take on this one, or is this just blah Seahawks and we move on?
I think this might be a close game. I think James Robinson's going to come out. He's going to play solid. But I think Seattle's still going to win. They're the better team. Jacksonville making progress, but still, Seattle's better.
This game, I would have no interest in watching other than just to see if Urban Meyer has any, sideline meltdowns. Nothing exciting about the Seahawks at 2-5 and the Jags at 1-5 playing. I think it'll be a close game. I'm going to pick the Jaguars just because right now the Seahawks, without Russell Wilson, I think that they're just, they're just a second rate team. And I think that the Jaguars are still right now fighting hard and have, they have a quarterback that is getting better and better each week. And their offense surprisingly can move the ball. So I'm gonna go hot take, and I'm taking the Jags in this game. We have the Washington football team and the Denver Broncos. Another game that doesn't really do much to get you super excited. But how you feeling about this one?
I'm gonna pick the Washington football team. Taylor Heineke is not like Daniel Jones and Kirk Cousins and who were we talking about when we were talking about this? Baker, like in that scenario. But he's also not a generational guy, obviously. He's Taylor Heineke. He's kind of a guy who will either come out and be really, really good or just be like below average.
Right.
I feel like he can have a good game. He has good weapons. The defense, which was supposed to be good, hasn't been. But I think the defense will play good against Denver. I just don't like this Denver team. I feel like the football team wins it.
Taylor Heineke reminds me of Seabiscuit, the racehorse that and phenomenal movie about Seabiscuit, by the way. And just to add a little bit to the reference, the thing with Seabiscuit was he was this undersized horse that everyone bet against, but had just tremendous talent. But he feasted on competition. He needed competition to draw out his best. And I feel that whenever Heineke is playing a legitimate NFL team, like when he was playing the Bucks in the playoffs, and he shows out and he plays great football. Denver is not a good football team. So I'm not sure if that's going to bring out anything in Tyler Heineke. But I just think that the Washington football team is just a little bit better than Denver. Denver doesn't have much. I mean, they got the return of Jerry Jeudy. Maybe that does something to spark their offense. But back when we did our first podcast, we had Denver and the Panthers at both 3-0, and neither of them won a game since the last time that you and I were at this table. And I don't think that that's going to change. So Washington football team for me. Fun one now. Bucks, Saints. Who do you have?
I have the Bucks. It really comes down to Jameis Winston. If he has one of the games that he had week 1, or if he plays like how he's played for most of the rest of the season. I just feel like the Bucks defensively are better, offensively are better, their QB's better, their receivers are better, their running back's worse, obviously, because Kamara's great.
Right.
But not by that much. Fournette's playing amazing. Yeah. Their defense is so much better. I just feel like they're going to beat the Saints, and it might not be close.
I feel like for Jameis Winston, this is one of those kind of games, like, where, you're a guy and you might bump into at some kind of event your ex, and they got their new partner with them who, appears to be, better looking than you, richer than you, more successful than you. And you have you're kind of sitting there and you're feeling that kind of well up and want to prove something. And I'm gonna say that Jameis is a talented player, and with Ingram back, seeing what kind of role he'll play in the offense, if how much time he gets. I feel that the mystique that the Saints seem to have sometimes going up against the Bucks, especially last year early on. Although in the end the Bucks had the last laugh. I think the Saints are gonna win this one. Another hot take for me there. I think the Bucks are poised for another letdown, and like maybe a little bit of a midseason lull, and the Saints are on the up. So I'm going to say the Saints. Cowboys and Vikings. Cowboys traveling to Minnesota for this one.
The Cowboys have been playing very good football. I think the Vikings win. I think Justin Jefferson is poised for a great game. Even though Trevon Diggs will be on him, he'll probably have a pick, but he just gives up so many yards. I feel like Jefferson's going to have a big game. I don't think Diggs will be able to guard him. I think Kirk Cousins is just going to deliver the throws that he needs to deliver. Obviously, Dalvin Cook, helps.
Yeah, the Vikings are a crazy team because the Vikings could very easily be 6-0. If you watch the Vikings, I mean they've lost some really close ones on some wild plays. But I do feel the Cowboys are for real. But I got to put an asterisk next to this game because we don't know if Dak's playing. So a Dak-led Cowboys, I believe, does beat the Vikings. But a non-Dak-led offense, I think the Vikings take it. So I'm going to say the Cowboys because I do have a feeling that Zach's going to play this game. Although, given that the Cowboys are in the NFC East and are going to probably win that division, going away, they could just rest Dak this week, and get Cooper Rush, in there. But let Cooper Rush play. So Cooper Rush is not beating the Vikings. Dak will beat the Vikings. But I do think that Dak's going to play. He's a competitor. And definitely a contender for the comeback player of the year. And the Cowboys will beat the Vikings. Monday night, we have the Chiefs also coming to the Meadowlands to take on the New York Giants. The New York Giants are probably one of the most depleted teams in the NFL right now. And the Chiefs are just right now taking abuse from everybody for right reasons. I mean, their defense has played terrible. Their offense hasn't lived up to its standards from the last couple of years. What are you looking at, Chiefs Giants?
Even if the Giants were fully healthy, I think the Chiefs win this game. They're just defensively as terrible as they've been with the offensive players that the Giants are going to be missing. If they get scored on, if they're getting scored on by a lot by the Giants, obviously they're not a good football team. Because the Giants, even when fully healthy, don't have a great offense. Everyone's injured. Kansas City's offense, it's a good matchup against the defense. I feel like Mahomes he has to stay calm, not try to do his usual Mahomes magic, don't do anything special. Just make good throws, which I think he will, and they'll win by a lot.
Yeah, I mean, this might be the first time that anybody's ever said in Mahomes' career as a starter that he has a regular season must-win game, other than a statement game. But this is really a must-win. I mean, the Chiefs probably could fall to 3-5 and still make a run, but it won't be easy, and obviously that would not put them in an ideal playoff position. But as I said earlier in the podcast, they are the Chiefs, and until I see them, sitting home come, January, I'm not going to pick against them. The Giants' offense, I don't think that they'll have enough to keep up with the Chiefs, although Tony is proving to be an absolute stud, but he's going to be hobbling through this game. So there it is. Those are our picks for the week, and we will double back and see only a couple hot takes here and there, but what do you say we also transition to one of the other more exciting things going on in professional sports right now, which is Major League Baseball? Your thoughts currently on the World Series, and I'm very much looking forward to your take on the MLB Awards for 2021.
Okay, so for the World Series, it's not a very exciting, almost not star-studded World Series coming into it. Yeah, no one would have said the Braves and Astros are going to be the two final teams, especially with the Dodgers, the Giants, even the Red Sox. I was saying earlier that probably like 99% of America is rooting for not the Astros, rooting for the Braves, including me, just because the Astros cheated, and not even just the cheating thing, they're not a likable team. I don't like Jose Altuve. And the Braves, Freddie Freeman is so likable. Obviously not for you because you're a Mets fan, but Freddie Freeman's amazing. I feel like when it comes down to it, the Red Sox almost outplayed the Astros. And I think the Braves are better than the Red Sox. I think the Braves will end up beating the Astros in probably 6 games.
I am pulling for the Astros. I like a good redemption story, and I do think that there's something kind of exciting to the fact that Houston's back here after all that they did have to endure. I mean, rightfully so. You get caught cheating. You deserve to be put through your paces. The way that the league, the fans, have kind of beaten them up the last couple of years once it was discovered what they did. But I also think it's pretty admirable and shows a lot about the fortitude of the team to fight back and make it back to this spot when you know that everybody is going to put them under intense scrutiny. So I'm with you on that, but I am pulling for the Astros. Cannot bring myself to root for the Braves under any circumstances. Maybe only if they're playing the Yankees, and even then it would just be
A lose-lose.
Exactly, because somebody's going to win that game, which is going to be a problem. But what are your thoughts? We have a very exciting, I feel, up-and-coming future for Major League Baseball with a lot of new budding stars. And, why don't you kind of walk me through, some of the award categories where you feel, we have some very exciting players, competing for obviously some very prestigious prizes.
Yeah, so for the Cy Young, on our last podcast, we did the MVP, so I won't say that here. But for the Cy Young isn't particularly interesting. I don't feel like it's particularly close. When Max Scherzer was traded at the trade deadline, he was not the Cy Young, and he was in the running, but it was debatable. It was debatable. It's not debatable anymore. I have some stats which are absurd here, but also, even if it wasn't for his stats, the impact he made on the Dodgers really turns around. But he did 2.46 ERA, 236 strikeouts. This isn't including the postseason. And a 185 batting average against. That is absurd. I just feel like, and down the stretch, he was unhittable. So, I think he's the clear Cy Young in the NL. Then the AL.
Wait, who was it?
Max Scherzer.
Not Zach Wheeler.
No, I feel like Zach Wheeler was amazing. Just the impact Scherzer made on the Dodgers, and the stats also back it up. And then for the AL, this player leads the pitchers from the AL in pretty much every stat.
Mm-hmm.
Robbie Ray. He had a 2.84 ERA, 248 strikeouts, and a 210 batting average against, which are all amazing stats. They don't really, except for the strikeouts, don't really compare to Scherzer's, though.
Yeah, and only 52 walks. And yeah, I mean, obviously competing for that would be Cole from the Yankees, Lynn from the White Sox, and Berrios from the Jays as well. Any of those you see sneaking in past Ray, or do you think that it's his going away?
I don't think so, especially because the stats don't really lie. Sometimes you could say the stats lie because of impact, but just pitching-wise, the AL is not great pitching-wise. And I feel like since Robbie Ray had the best stats, and also his team was solid, I think he'll win it pretty easily.
Okay. What other awards you want to discuss?
So for the Rookie of the Year, in the past, the Rookie of the Years have been really, really exciting with players like Aaron Judge, Fernando Tatis, and such, putting up very good numbers in the Rookie year. There's some very good rookies, but none super special rookies. So in the NL, there's Jonathan India from the Reds. His stats are good. He had a 269 average, 21 home runs, 69 RBIs, and 835 OPS. Those are very good stats. Nothing eye-popping there. I think he also had 12 stolen bases. But he was a really, really solid player. In the NL, the rookies were not amazing this year. So he'll probably walk away with that. Then the AL.
What are your thoughts on Trevor Rogers? If Rogers didn't take August off for family reasons, do you think that he takes it over India?
I don't think so, just because for Rookie of the Year, in most things besides Cy Young, the voters usually tend to vote towards the hitters because their stats are almost more comparable to the pitchers than the pitcher stats are comparable to the hitters. I feel like just if it comes down to even if I was voting, if there's comparable levels of impact and the statistics in their general positions, I would vote for the hitter just because he plays every day. Not every other 5 days.
And you have to hand it to the Cardinals, though. I mean, having two, Carlson and Sosa, that also were viable contenders for this. I mean, they have a bright future. You see any of those being able to overtake India, or is he's just his stats are just too far out in front of Sosa and Carlson?
I feel like here and in the AL, there's some players who, at some points, mostly near the end of the season, started playing a lot better. and would have probably won Rookie of the Year if they had played like that the whole year. But just India played good the whole year. His stats are consistent. Every statistic looks solid for him. I feel like he'll win it. And then the AL, the rookies were a bit better in the AL. I think Wander Franco would have won it if he played the whole year, but he didn't.
Yeah, he was a call-up.
So I feel like Adolis Garcia from Texas will win it. He hit 243, obviously not amazing, but he hit 31 home runs and had 90 RBIs in his rookie year. Also had 16 stolen bases. His OPS was 741. Obviously, his average wasn't.
I feel that, the Rays, you could argue that the top 3 contenders for this were Rays. What about Rosarina?
That's another guy, obviously, in the playoffs in that series against the Red Sox, but they ended up losing. He looked like not only one of the best rookies in baseball, one of the best players in baseball. I just feel like over the whole year, Garcia's stats were better. Rosarina didn't have an amazing regular season. He had a good regular
274,
season.
20 homers, 69 RBIs, 20 stolen bases.
I just feel like the 31 home runs, 90 RBIs, and it's not like he stole bases, but so did Garcia. Garcia had 16. I feel like Garcia, even though you could make the case for Rosarina that his team was also better.
Okay. Well, I mean, so based off this, though, the Rays and Cardinals definitely have some bright young talent. Still sitting here reeling a little bit about Scherzer over Wheeler. I mean, well, it stings as a Mets fan, watching Zach Wheeler. I mean, it's just typically what happens as us Mets fans. But yeah, that's I'm gonna say it's a little bit of a hot take on Scherzer over Wheeler, but nice. All right, should we transition over to the NBA?
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, so the NBA season started, and definitely I think a lot of teams out there, a lot of fans, a lot of teams aren't off to the starts that they would wish, unless you're a Knicks fan. And maybe this is the longest the Knicks are going to be in first place all season. Don't know. But let's start with the Knicks. So what are your thoughts? Are they a pretender or a contender?
I think they're a pretender. I think they're a very good basketball team. I don't think they have a chance at winning the championship. And just because, you look at it, opening night, they went to double overtime against the Celtics. And the Celtics are a good team. They have 2 in my opinion, top 25 players. But as a team, the Celtics, my team, look terrible this year. They shoot a lot of threes. They don't take it to the rack. There's not a lot of ball movement. The defense isn't great. I just feel like, and the Knicks went to double overtime with them. Obviously, it was the first game of the season. But that was a game where Julius Randle couldn't be stopped. They couldn't stop Jaylen Brown. Julius Randle can't be stopped. I think they have a very good set of role players. I don't think Julius Randle's amazing. He's not a number 1 option, because as in the playoffs last year, when a really good defensive team overall, when they have to focus on Julius Randle as the first option on the other opposing offense, I don't think he's as effective, because I feel like if they had somehow, or if they still do, pull off a trade for Damian Lillard, then they would be championship contenders, because the duo of him and Julius Randle would be very good. But besides that, I feel like they'll end up barely making the playoffs.
Now, Bulls, are they hurt with losing Patrick Williams for the year?
I mean, obviously they're hurt. I'm a big Patrick Williams guy. Just the impact he brings. He plays hard. I don't think they're that hurt because of the depth that they added in the offseason. Especially because they are also shopping Kobe White. I like UNC, so I love Kobe White. I really hope the Celtics get him, but I feel like they could get some depth and assets back that could almost not make up for the loss of Patrick Williams, but like almost patch it up.
Now, I know that you're a big NBA guy, so I will pose this question to you. I also pose it to a lot of NHL fans. I do enjoy the NHL as well. When do we actually start paying attention to basketball? I mean, for me, most of the time, I didn't really put any effort or focus on the standings and where teams were, really until after at least football season was done. Sometimes not even until early spring, just because their playoffs are so long, and so many teams make the playoffs, that where these teams start in October, and where they finish in May, sometimes are just drastically different. So, as an avid NBA fan, when do we start taking these teams and their records seriously?
I feel like for player statistics too, there's some players this year who are playing like superstars who obviously aren't superstars, and teams overperforming, teams underperforming. For me, it gets like once we're going through December, if a player's still playing much better than they usually do, you have to start thinking maybe this player's for real. And if like the Lakers are still kind of struggling, you might think the Lakers might need to make some trades at the trade deadline. They're not so good. And then after that, after the All-Star break, I feel like, especially then, you got to be like, if they're still doing it after the All-Star breaking, really, like partway through the season, like probably like 40 games in, if players and teams are still doing it, you got to think that they're legit.
All right, well, then let's do our little time capsule hot take on this. Tell me right now, how does the Simmons and Irving situations play out? Ben Simmons, Kyrie Irving, how do these two situations play out?
I really think that it would have been perfect if the Nets had traded Kyrie Irving for Ben Simmons. It's a beautiful fit for both teams. Obviously, neither player is really fitting with the team right now. Ben Simmons doesn't want to be there. The Sixers really don't want him to be there. Kyrie Irving wants to be on the Nets. The Nets do want Kyrie Irving to be on the team. Just the fact that he's unvaccinated and be per the New York laws, couldn't play in any of the home games. And the Nets decided, since he could only be there for 50% of the games and practices, that he might as well not play at all because it would just be a distraction to the team. I feel like Kyrie Irving, I think, eventually will get vaccinated just so he can play basketball because his isn't really like a team thing. I don't think they need to trade him. I think overall, even when he is playing, he's a distraction off the court. But his talent is so much. I think he'll end up playing for the Nets, and that'll really help them because they're missing him right now. And then I don't see any way Ben Simmons stays on Philadelphia after all that's happened. He finally agreed to come back. He's just not. He's not trying his hardest. He's not playing.
Yeah.
And they're not going to be able to boost his trade value without him playing, obviously, better. I think they'll end up trading him for not the value they would need unless a team who's struggling so far will offer a lot for him because he is a very good player. Offensively, he needs to be on a team that has shooting at all four positions besides him and has players who can score at all four other positions because he's not a scorer. He's an okay scorer, but he's not really a scorer. His passing's good, it's not great. Offensively, he's kind of a non-factor. And then defensively, he's obviously one of the best, if not the best, defender in the game. And that's where he really brings value. So I feel like for a team, maybe not the Blazers, because I feel like if they're not doing good, they trade Lillard and just blow it all up first. If they want to offer C.J. McCollum for Ben Simmons, and then maybe a few picks, I think the Sixers would probably do that. C.J. would be a nice fit on the Sixers, just bringing some shooting and scoring to take some pressure off Embiid. And Ben Simmons was kind of what the Trailblazers could have used a few years ago when they were really contending. But I think him and Damian Lillard's a nice fit. So.
Yeah. Doubling back to Kyrie and not making this a vaccinated, unvaccinated thing, there's a lot of support. There was a couple rallies, I believe, for Kyrie. And if he has the support of his teammates, which I guess I haven't heard anything otherwise, I guess I don't know why they wouldn't let him play on the road. I mean, if you're trying to win and, every game matters, and his team is on board with it, the coaching staff's on board with it, and they're supporting his choices, I would think that you would want to put the best possible players out there. Now, I get the fact that he's in the lineup on road games, he's not in the lineup on home games, and I understand that, but at the same point, if he's if the locker room is healthy and the locker room supports it, then there's no harm. Although I'm not really quite sure how that would work with the roster. With having the amount of guys you carry when you're home and away. But as far as Ben Simmons goes, I agree with every point you make. I mean, that seems to be a little bit the opposite. You have a guy that's just being a cancer in the clubhouse, and the team doesn't want him there. anymore. I mean, it seems like they made every effort and every attempt to try to mend fences, to meet with him, to try to, come into this year healthy and unified. And it seems like Simmons really wants no part of that at all. Don't know, I mean, I'm sure he has his reasons. Some he's made public and some maybe he hasn't. But I'm with you on that, the quicker you could probably get him off your roster, the better you'll be, less distractions, and maybe even a chance to be competitive. Although they're sitting at 3-2 right now, so and we've decided that you can't really put too much stock into records. But given it, last little note on the NBA at the moment, any teams right now with what you've seen so far that should be worried?
I don't think that the Lakers and Nets should be worried. Both of them are sitting at 2-3, which is not as much as they would want. But the Nets are just getting used to playing without Kyrie. The Lakers have been playing better as of late. I feel like this isn't really a hot take, but the Celtics should be worried. The Celtics aren't playing well. They're not really passing well. They're not even shooting the three well, and that's all they shoot. They don't drive to the rim. Their defense isn't great. The chemistry doesn't seem to be there. They don't look like a playoff team, which is unfortunate because going to the year they could have potentially been at like a top 5 seed in the East.
Okay, so we're gonna wrap up the show again with your hot takes. Zach on the hot seat. I'm gonna throw 3 questions at you, and we're gonna get your predictions. Question number 1: which current NFL superstar has a fade for the rest of the season? So who right now are we talking about that come end of the season is going to have faded from the limelight?
I'm trying to think. This is my answer. I think Derrick Henry won't keep up what he's done. He'll probably be, obviously, the Offensive Player of the Year. Because that should almost be renamed.
It's a hot take. Derrick Henry fade?
No. I think he won't keep up what he's been doing.
You should sign to that.
He'll still be amazing. I think that Justin Herbert, as good as he is, might fade a bit down this season.
Is that just because he's my fantasy quarterback and we're playing each other this week?
No, because I feel like if the team is getting more close to being eliminated, he's going to, since he's so young, be thinking, I got to do everything for the team. He's going to throw more interceptions. Also, I think Jonathan Taylor won't keep up what he's been doing because last year he had a bad first half, great second half. This year he's had a great first half so far. I think he'll fall off a bit down the second half.
Okay. Major League Baseball, hot take. Who is one player this year we are not talking about, but next year we will certainly be talking about and will be on everybody's radar?
This is actually an answer that I hadn't thought of, but I have right off the top of my head. This is a player who last year everyone was talking about, and right now no one's talking about because he got injured. Next year at this time, Ronald Acuna will be coming off an MVP award, and and everyone will know who Ronald Acuna is. He's that good of a player.
All right. And end of the NBA season, what jersey will Ben Simmons be wearing, and what jersey will Kyrie Irving be wearing?
Kyrie Irving will be wearing a Nets jersey, and I think Ben Simmons will end up wearing an Indiana Pacers jersey.
All right. You've heard it here first. Derrick Henry will completely fade from the limelight. Now, of course, it's not Derrick Henry. It's my fantasy quarterback, Justin Herbert. I'm going to say Derek Carr actually has a fade on that.
Well, he hasn't been, since the beginning of the year, he's been still good, but not as good as he was. He's already almost faded.
Well, as always, my friend, we've covered a lot. I feel like we've been on a great, big, epic journey together. As one of my favorite bands, the Cabral Brothers, said so poetically in one of their songs. All right, well, we will check our picks. Thank you guys so much for listening, and we will see you next time. Till then. There it is. Perfect. Just like that.
Okay.